On the night of September 19, 1976, the quiet skies over Tehran suddenly lit up with a blinding, strange light. Multiple emergency calls flooded the civilian airport control tower from concerned citizens looking up into the dark night. Witnesses described a giant glowing object hovering low in the sky, flashing intense red, green, and orange lights across the city. Tower controllers checked their primary screens and quickly realized that something impossible was riding through restricted military airspace. Radar operators at the airfield locked onto the return and confirmed a massive target floating miles above the sleeping city. The returns were unusually clear and showed a size far larger than any commercial airliner of that era. Ground crews tried establishing radio contact with the unknown object on standard emergency frequencies, but received only dead air. Recognizing the growing safety threat over a major capital, the flight controller immediately notified Military Defense Command to scramble armed air defense interceptors. At Sharoki Air Base, alarm sirens pierced the midnight air as ground crews rushed to launch a frontline F-4 Phantom interceptor. The heavy twin-engine jet roared down the runway, taking off into the cold night sky to investigate the unknown contact. Inside the cockpit, the pilot pushed the engines into full afterburner to gain altitude quickly while maintaining constant contact with ground control. Within minutes, the powerful fighter jet was speeding directly toward the flashing lights floating over Tehran. As the F-4 Phantom approached within 70 miles of the target, the pilot saw the brilliant object with his own eyes. The craft was glowing so brightly that it illuminated the clouds around it like a false sun in the dark. The pilot reported that the light was shifting constantly between brilliant shades of emerald, ruby, and brilliant gold. But as the jet tried to close the remaining distance, the glowing target accelerated away at incredible speed. The pilot tried to chase the fleeing craft, pushing his jet to its absolute speed limit. Suddenly, as the jet got within 25 miles of the object, the cockpit instruments went dark. The pilot lost all radio contact with ground control, and his navigation equipment stopped functioning completely. Realizing his jet was suffering total systems failure, the pilot turned the aircraft around and headed back toward base. As soon as the jet backed away, all flight systems magically came back to life. Military commanders immediately scrambled a second F-4 Phantom interceptor to take over the high-stakes chase. Flown by Lieutenant Jafari, this second jet was equipped with advanced radar and air-to-air missiles ready for immediate combat. Jafari pushed his aircraft hard, climbing rapidly through the darkness to intercept the evasive target before it could escape. Ground radar continued to track both the fast-moving jet and the mysterious object hovering high above the terrain. Lieutenant Jafari established visual contact with the brilliant craft while maintaining a steady flight path across the night sky. He observed that the primary light was so intense that it was impossible to discern the physical hull of the object behind the glare. The unknown craft moved with fluid, silent grace, making sudden directional changes that should have crushed a human pilot under immense gravitational forces. Jafari kept his distance while preparing his target acquisition systems. Inside the F-4 Phantom cockpit, Jafari flipped his weapon controls and successfully locked his intercept radar onto the glowing craft. The target screen confirmed a massive object with a radar reflection comparable to a heavy military transport plane. For a brief moment, the crew believed they had controlled the tactical situation using standard air defense protocols. But the unknown target was about to demonstrate a far superior electronic warfare capability that shocked the entire defense command. Without warning, a smaller luminous object detached itself from the primary craft and moved rapidly toward the approaching jet. The secondary object shot across the night sky like a missile, accelerating directly along the collision line of the F-4 Phantom. Jafari believed his aircraft was under direct heavy attack from an unknown hostile weapon system. He immediately made the split-second decision to defend his jet and engage the incoming threat with lethal force. Lieutenant Jafari reached for his flight stick controls and attempted to fire an AM-9 Sidewinder heat-seeking missile at the incoming object. He flipped the arming switch into position, waiting for the familiar locking tone in his headset to confirm missile guidance. The missile system was fully armed and ready to launch within seconds. Every system on the modern fighter was operating at peak performance just prior to pressing the trigger. The moment Jafari touched the weapon launch button, his entire aircraft suffered a complete and sudden power failure. The missile control panel went dead, the radar scope turned black, and all tactical radio communications ceased instantly. The pilot lost all weapon control, electronic flight guidance, and radio contact with his wingman and ground controllers. The advanced American-built fighter jet had been completely disarmed in a fraction of a second without a single shot being fired. Left completely helpless in the dark, Jafari threw his aircraft into a sharp dive to dodge the oncoming craft. He pulled hard on the mechanical stick controls, diving away toward lower altitudes while bracing for impact. The secondary object turned smoothly in mid-air, matching the jet's dive briefly before altering course. As the jet pulled away from the primary object, power suddenly restored to the flight control systems and radar scope. Jafari watched in awe through his canopy as the smaller object circled back and rejoined the main craft seamlessly. The two lights merged together into a single bright shape as if they were made of liquid light rather than solid metal. The primary object then accelerated across the sky at speeds no human jet of the 1970s could ever hope to reach. It moved miles away in the blink of an eye, completely defying all known laws of motion. Moments later, a third smaller object detached from the bottom of the main vehicle and dropped rapidly toward the ground. It descended in a gentle, controlled vector, trailing a soft glow across the dark mountain landscape below. Jafari tracked the object visually as it drifted lower and lower over the desert floor outside the city limits. The primary object remained high in the sky, watching over the smaller craft as it completed its descent. The descending craft touched down softly on the desert terrain, illuminating an area of several hundred meters around its landing point. The bright light slowly dimmed into a steady glow that remained visible to the hovering fighter jet miles above. Jafari reported the precise landing coordinates back to ground control as his radio system stabilized. The mysterious craft remained stationary on the ground, glowing silently in the dark desert waste. As the F-4 Phantom flew further away from the immediate area, all electronic flight instruments returned to full normal operation. The radar screens cleared, the radios worked without static, and the weapon control systems showed ready status once again. The aircraft suffered no lasting physical damage, no fried circuits, and no engine flameout during the terrifying encounter. The electronic failure had been completely selective, temporary, and tightly controlled by the unknown object. At first light the following morning, a ground search team rushed to the exact coordinates reported by the fighter pilot. Military personnel swept the desert floor using specialized equipment to check for residual heat, radiation, or physical debris left behind. They found clear physical evidence of heavy disturbance on the desert ground where the object had rested during the night. Beeper signals and electromagnetic traces were recorded in the immediate vicinity of the landing zone. The Iranian Air Force detailed every minute of the encounter inside official flight logs and confidential incident reports. Pilots, radar operators, and ground controllers provided matching testimonies under oath, detailing the exact timeline of events. The official logs documented a structured military engagement where human defense systems were completely neutralized by an advanced, unknown presence. These detailed records formed one of the most thoroughly documented UAP cases in modern military history. Word of the dramatic encounter quickly reached American military advisors stationed in Iran, triggering a top-priority intelligence investigation. A detailed summary was prepared and sent directly to the United States Defense Intelligence Agency and the CIA. Years later, a declassified report confirmed that the event had been studied at the highest levels of national security. The declassified records rated the Tehran event as an outstanding case of verified, unknown aerial performance. Military analysts focused heavily on the incredible electronic warfare capability demonstrated during the encounter over Iran. The unknown craft had targeted specific weapon systems on the F-4 Phantom without shutting down basic hydraulic control or engine operation. This level of precise jammer technology was decades ahead of anything possessed by global military powers in 1976. It proved that the phenomenon possessed active defensive control over high-grade military hardware. Comparing 1970s jet technology with the capabilities of the unidentified craft revealed a massive technological gap. The F-4 Phantom was the world's premier interceptor aircraft, equipped with state-of-the-art radar and guided weapons systems. Yet, against this unknown craft, the jet was rendered useless in a matter of seconds without any physical collision. Human aerospace technology was humbled by a force that operated beyond known mechanical boundaries. Investigators were baffled by the total absence of permanent electronic damage after the systems recovered. Standard electromagnetic pulse attacks usually melt microchips, blow fuses, and permanently ruin delicate military electronics. In this incident, the electronics were turned off and then turned back on as if someone had flicked a remote switch. This clean disruption pointed toward a far more advanced mechanism than conventional energy weapons known to science. Cross-referencing pilot logs with ground radar telemetry proved that the encounter was not an optical illusion or weather anomaly. The ground radar screens tracked the exact same movements, speeds, and sudden stops described by both pilot crews in the air. The matching physical evidence from multiple independent sources eliminated the possibility of pilot error or equipment miscalibration. The data stood firm as solid proof of an anomalous physical object in controlled flight. During the tense global atmosphere of the Cold War, the Tehran incident created serious strategic concern among military leaders. At first, defense officials feared that a rival nation had secretly developed a revolutionary weapons system. However, the flight maneuvers and energy output observed far exceeded the industrial capacity of any nation on Earth at that time. The incident forced officials to consider the alarming reality of a non-human intelligence operating freely in Earth's skies. The implications of the 1976 Tehran event resonated far beyond a single night of military confusion over Iran. It shattered the belief that human technology held supreme dominance over the skies and airspace of our planet. The event demonstrated that advanced aerial objects could operate near major cities, neutralize military defenses, and leave without trace. It challenged the fundamental boundaries of our scientific understanding and national security models. Decades after those lights flashed over the mountains of Iran, the official logs and pilot reports remain a cornerstone of UAP analysis. The physical records, radar files, and declassified CIA documents continue to defy conventional explanation. The 1976 Tehran incident stands as a chilling reminder that our skies hold profound mysteries operating far beyond our reach. And somewhere in the dark above us, that ancient mystery still waits to be understood.